Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Saturday afternoon at Live at the Waterhole. My name is Ben Coley. I will be with you for the next couple of hours. And it seems that we've started our afternoon at Founders Mantis Lodge down in Eastern Cape with some very, very tired zebras, it seems. Very much enjoying the the comfort, it seems, of that nice, rich, orange, sandy soil. Do not worry. These zebras are merely enjoying themselves. I don't think there has been any foul play going on. It's just a classic Saturday afternoon. But remember that this is a live and interactive show. I am here to answer any questions, hopefully read out any comments that you do send through to us. So please do send them in. And it's always lovely to hear from you. Wherever you are in the globe, always nice to know where you're from as well, or what you're up to, and any opinions that you might have, or questions on what we're seeing. I have to say, it's not often that you see a zebra stretched out like that. I don't know what perhaps he got up to last night. Fairly rough Friday night, perhaps. But looks very, very comfortable. Having a bit of a scratch of his head on the sand. Often do get them sort of lying in the road, but how rare do you see them stretched out on one side like that? You can see that classic twitching of the skin, probably in response to flies and other little insect-based irritations that are landing on the skin. It doesn't seem to be enough to perturb this one's slumber. Kenya, you're saying zebras are taking over from all the rhinos today. Yes, we are very fortunate to quite regularly see rhinos down here at Mantis Founders Lodge. They often like to plonk themselves under that lovely acacia just off to the left. No sign of them today, but we will see if they do make an appearance. But yeah, this is lovely to see these relaxing zebras. Difficult to sex them at the moment, of course. Very tough to do it from a head-on view. We need to see under the tail to be absolutely sure, but classic social structure would be a stallion with a few mares in tow, or possibly a bachelor group. Greetings, cat fan. Yes, it is nice to be back. I've actually got a few live at the waterholes lined up over the next week or so. So, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your depending on how you see it, you'll be hearing quite a lot of me over the next week. I've got the weekend shift, so I'm doing today and tomorrow, and then I think also something like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as well. I'll also be on here. So hoping for some amazing sightings, something a little bit out of the ordinary, maybe some nice birds, who knows, maybe we get a cat that pops up. That would always be nice. I'm sure you'd appreciate that, cat fan. Doesn't often happen during the hottest part of the day, or during the middle of the day when we're broadcasting this, but you just never know what might come calling. Maybe the mention of cats has perked this zebra up. It does look rather spectacular. Look at the way that mane is sticking upright. It's in good condition at the moment. Harriet Hodgkin, good afternoon to you and everybody else who is joining us from a lovely and cool, overcast Cape Town. Well, I have to say it's been relatively overcast. There are previously mentioned rhinos in their normal position. Definitely a quiet day. Oh, a little Cape wagtail just made a brief cameo in the bottom left-hand corner. But yes, we've also been graced with some overcast conditions. And it has been interesting to sort of monitor the change of season. Of course, we're very much moving into autumn now in the Lowveld area. Remember, Cape Town has a slightly different climate to the rest of South Africa, more akin to a Mediterranean climate in terms of summer-winter weather patterns. But out here, things are thankfully cooling down after what has been a rather hot and humid period. Now, even when the weather forecast says it's going to be very, very hot, it's sort of mid-30s instead of mid-40s, which makes the world of a difference. The skies still have not completely cleared, though. We are still getting quite a few cloudy evenings, which, for those of you who know my particular interest, has been a little bit frustrating. I've had to cancel one or two astronomical based activities over the last week or two. But as we move towards winter, and particularly as we get into April, May, and beyond, we should be blessed with clear skies, hopefully for months and months on end, and far less oppressive temperatures, far less humidity, all of which very conducive to enjoying the night sky. Hello, wildlife lady, as well. Thank you for welcoming me back. It is beautiful to be back, and I'm looking forward to spending the next, what are we now, hour and 50 minutes or so with everybody who is also joining. Okay, well, it seems our zebras have moved on. Perhaps they were a little shy with all the camera attention that they were getting. Excuse me. But it seems these rhinos are in no great hurry to go. I thought that zebra who was standing overlooking the waterhole looked rather magnificent. I did take a little look at his front left leg and thought it might have looked a little swollen around the, well, in inverted commas, the knee joint. But I still wasn't quite sure whether it was just a trick of the light and the shadows or whether it was a little bit puffy perhaps, but didn't seem to be walking with any particular problems. But a beautiful pose that he adopted there. And Cat Fan, you've also agreed that those zebras look in the peak of health. Well, so they should do at this time of year. Of course, coming to the end of the summer, there is a multitude of grasses that they will have been able to feed on over the last few months, so they should be in peak condition for now. And of course, remember with zebra, it's actually very difficult to tell, even if they are not feeding very well, they will still look quite rounded and full in terms of belly sizes, just because of the digestive system that they have, and the fermentation of that food that they eat creates a lot of gaseous byproduct, which gives them quite a rotund appearance, even when they are not eating as much as they would do this time of year. But I agree. I think you can just, it's almost a bit like with domestic pets, things like dogs, their coat just looked particularly shiny, a lot of contrast between those blacks and whites. So they often find, I feel, more contrast in male stripes than you do in female stripes. But very much having enjoyed the last few months, I would think. Mo, you're enjoying the rhinos, and I'm not surprised. It's lovely to see them. I must admit, it's the one thing that since I've been back in the country, which is 9 months now after my little exodus to New Zealand for a while, probably the thing I have seen the least of is rhinos. It is such a shame due to the problems, of course, that they're having. The poaching numbers in Kruger do seem to have gone up slightly from the previous year. And there have been, well, I don't know the exact figures. I think the last figures I saw were in January that there was, well, I should probably have to check to give you the full figure, but maybe around about 20 or so poached just in January from the Kruger area, which is horrifying, really. It's nearly one rhino a day. But we wish the anti-poaching and the conservation initiatives all the best to keep looking after this iconic species and all the private reserves that do such a wonderful job so that we can continue to enjoy them. But yeah, I've been to Kruger quite a few times and I'm still yet to see a free roaming rhino, which is quite worrying. Anyway, let's try and increase the positivity levels. Let's pop up to Tau in Madikwe and see what is happening there. The knee migration is back at Tau. We've got waterbuck, we've got more zebra, we've got wildebeest. I'm sure there'll be an elephant or two joining at some point, taking advantage of all that food and all that water. I'm very happy to report that where I stay in a wildlife estate just about sort of 10 kilometres outside of Hoedspruit, we've got a little trail cam set up in the garden, and we actually captured photographed or took video of a beautiful male waterbuck who came wandering past last night. First waterbuck that I've seen here since I've been living here or within the peripheries of my house. Yeah, and he hung around for a little while, and I'm even more delighted to say that when I went out this morning, I could just see him lying about 30, 40 meters away from the house, happily ruminating, watching me faff around outside for a little bit. So nice to know that we have a waterbuck who comes a calling. We've also had porcupine, genet. We've got a daker that we see almost on a nightly basis. So very, very special to stay in these protected areas. That waterbuck I have named Quobus. which is not very original because the Latin name for waterbuck is Quibus ellipsiprimnus, referring to the elliptical shape on their backside, on those buttocks, that very characteristic white circle. So I figured Quibus was the most logical option. It was either that or Shaggy. If we see another one, I think the next one will be Shaggy, on account of the slightly longer and fluffy hair that waterbucks have. But very much hoping to get an aardvark on that trail camera. That is the goal. We definitely have them here. We see evidence of their digging. I've seen tracks around the estate. So hoping one evening we might get the mecca of an aardvark wandering past. Right, it sounds like we've got something interesting happening up at Oldonyo in Kenya. Let's quickly shoot up there and have a look. Oh, look how cute! A little giraffe. Interestingly, that does not look like mum. That looks like a young male giraffe. Not sure where the mother is. See a couple standing in the background. One on the right certainly looks like a male, just based on the size and form of those ossicones. Perhaps she's a little bit further around. But I've seen quite a few giraffe at Doldono over the weeks, but don't remember seeing any little ones. Ooh, hiding in the shade of that big umbrella thorn. I can hear some noises off to the left. I wonder if our elephants are monopolizing the waterhole, as they often do. But look how pale this giraffe is in comparison to what is not even a fully grown adult. Indeed, Jessica, very, very sweet, this little giraffe. Can't quite see if it's a boy or a girl yet. I mean, you can't really gauge it on the ossicones at this age because males and females do look very, very similar. To wait for a couple of years before they sort of start to thicken up in the case of the males and lose some of that hair on the top. It's certainly not a newborn, this one. I would say probably 3 months, maybe 4 months. Or I'll hedge my bets and say somewhere between 3 and 6, but looks too small for 6. Remember, young giraffes grow incredibly quickly. It sort of works out at about half a centimetre a day, which is ridiculous. Imagine marking that off on your door frame every week or so. Yeah, no, I'm going to stick with sort of 3 to 4 months. Remember, these are Maasai giraffe. I'm obviously used to the southern African giraffe that we get down in these areas. Maasai giraffe are a little bit smaller than the giraffe that we get here, but characterized by that more sort of closely knit pattern on their skin, slightly more jagged edges as well. Here comes a big ellie. But as you can see, this was definitely a young male giraffe. So I'm not sure where mum is, perhaps further off to the right. Maybe this is big brother, and that the youngster was following for a little while. Teaching him bad habits. There's a beautiful size comparison. Ooh. Catfern, yes, Oldonio is usually a hotbed of animal activity. It is, I think part of the reason for that is there's not a great deal of standing water in this area. There are no perennial rivers, no big water sources. So an area like this, which is provided for the animals, that is pumped and kept regularly stocked with water. I don't know the area, I've never visited, but the impression I get from reading up about it is say that there aren't many obvious water bodies. So this one being a regular or constantly available water source does seem to attract a multitude of game. We often see elephants and giraffe here. Eland, oryx, zebras, all sorts of activity. And we had a secretary bird here, I seem to recall, not that long ago. Just watching the body language of that younger one, he looks slightly uncomfortable. And that was why this larger bull has come in and the other one has vacated the area. I always say this, but it still fascinates me to watch the social interactions of herds of, or herds probably the wrong word, but of these groups of male elephants. For those of you who are interested, I've just had a report that apparently one ton, the famous elephant with very large tusks, was seen here a little bit earlier this morning. So maybe if we're lucky, he will make an appearance. I'm still yet to see him. And again, I say this pretty much every time that I'm on, that I hope he does make an appearance so I can say that I have seen him. But it's not the first time he's been seen earlier on in the day and has not shown up during our 2-hour live session. But we will hope maybe he's more of an early morning drinker. The bull is struggling to make a proper seal around the little inflow pipe, trying to get that fresh water into the trunk. Interesting to see the body, the behaviour of the other two, the body language, just giving him a little bit of space, keeping an eye on him. Yes, Penelope Kenyon, more giraffe waiting in the shade for the Ellies to move. That seems to be a fairly common occurrence here at Oldonia. The elephants do seem to have priority, unsurprisingly, due to their bulk. But it is always nice to see when the other animals do pluck up the courage and come down and have a bit of a drink alongside the Ellies. Normally, from what I've seen here, the elephants are relatively tolerant, even though this is a pretty small waterhole. They can get quite protective over these resources. A bit of a queue forming. Ah, maybe there's Mum. Youngster looks as if it was plucking up a bit of courage and then thought better of it. But interestingly, he's hanging around next to water. Maybe he is particularly thirsty. I haven't quite plucked up the courage yet. No, that's a bit too intimidating. With a 5 or 6 ton animal walking towards you, I would also probably move out of its way. Let's get the impression that this bull has just blocked off the approach for the giraffe. Victoria Potts, you have asked what a group of giraffe is called. Well, there are many names for groups of giraffe. None of them, say, are sort of scientifically correct. They're sort of assigned to them. I'm not sure who is in charge of making them more commonplace, but it does seem that giraffe have more collective nouns than any other animals out here that I'm aware of. The standard ones are a tower of giraffe, a stretch of giraffe, a journey of giraffe, and the one that I've always rather liked is a kaleidoscope of giraffe. There may well be others, but those are four that are used fairly commonly. But I don't know of many other animals where there are so many derivatives of those collective nouns. Hippos, you have a pod of hippos or a raft of hippos. It's a rank of impala. I've heard an implausibility of wildebeest, a dazzle of zebra. But most of these are just sort of ones or twos. So quite why giraffe have such a diverse number of them, I'm not sure. That's lovely. You're enjoying the fluffy ossicones of the little baby giraffe. He is very, very cute. Actually doesn't look quite as small standing next to what I assume is his mum as he did next to that male. But interesting to see the male sort of bend down and just sort of smell the top of the little giraffe's head. Maybe he was giving himself a little tickle from those hairy ossicones. You never know, but I wonder if there is a family relation there, or whether it is just a group of giraffe that hang out together that have built up some sort of social bond. Of course, the social construction of giraffe society is still up for debate. We're still not quite sure how it all works. The classic temporary associations. But incredibly white. I don't think I've ever seen such a contrasty white giraffe. Almost, I want to sort of call it leucistic, but it definitely isn't. Otherwise, we wouldn't see such obvious contrast between the patches and the white of fur next to it. Sort of lacks the orange. You can see the orange in the mane and at the base of the ossicones, but the hair itself is almost snow white. But it's not unusual for young animals to be paler than the older ones, particularly in giraffe. Sorry, excuse me. Right, come on, giraffe. 2 elephants down, 1 to go. See if they pluck up the courage to come in for a drink now. Oh, the little one's getting a drink as well. Seems that one elephant is not too scary, also not a full-grown bull, this one on the left. I don't think I've ever seen giraffe drinking so often anywhere that we do here at Oldonyo. Bit of a shame that all the others are blocking the little one. Oh, interestingly, the little one is sort of drinking a little bit away from the adults. I thought perhaps he would be sandwiched in between a couple of them just for safety and protection. They do all seem a little bit jumpy today, but it's not unusual for giraffe, always nervous around water. Marco Casas, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You liking the way that the elephants seem to tickle the water with the tip of their trunk? I say in this case, this young bull has got his trunk wrapped around the inflow pipe that's the sort of trickle pipe that's keeping this water hole relatively full. That's the cleanest water, but you do often see them sort of just dip their trunk onto the top of the water and give it a bit of a swish around before they feed, or before they drink, sorry. I think that is more just sort of to get rid of any of the scum on the top, some of the algae, the cyanobacteria that may be flourishing there, just to try and make the water a little bit cleaner, because elephants do have a real preference for clean water, as we can see here. So also note, after all that effort to get the clean water, almost not a drop being spilt. If he was drinking out of the main body of the water, you'd see they're a little bit more sloppy with their approach. It doesn't really matter if they drop some, but since he's going through the effort to get that clean water, you can see how long he keeps his trunk attached to the pipe for. It'll only be a very small amount of water that is coming out. You can kind of see the ripples in the trunk as the muscles, as that water is being pulled up into the trunk and kept or topped up as the suction continues. And on average, an elephant's trunk can hold somewhere between sort of 8 and 10 litres of water that is then squirted into the mouth. You can see those muscles tensing and flexing on the bridge of the nose at the top of the trunk there. Beautiful long eyelashes, that lovely amber coloured eye, very, very soft eyes in a situation like this, and that white sort of scum that you can see at the front, that is just being produced from the eye. It's just like ours do. If you've got something in your eye, it's just cleaning the eye, getting rid of any dust. It's not officially sort of tear ducts. They have what's called a Harderian gland, which produces a fluid. That's often what little moths and flies that are buzzing around the eyes of elephants are after, that moisture, particularly during the dry periods. Beautiful close-up views. Got those lovely double notch there taken out of that left-hand tusk. Obviously prefers to use that left tusk as a lever for snapping vegetation. Over the years has just carved out those little notches. Come on, little one, come back and have another drink. Interesting to me to see how confident this young one is. No sign of mum again, but obviously in being given some confidence by the fact that there is this male giraffe also thinking about having a drink. See the others waiting in the peripheries. Oh, no, still a bit scary. Well, we will keep an eye on this little group of giraffes and see if they get a chance. It'd be lovely if all of the giraffes come down and have a drink. Always a very special sight. But I think we are going to jet set our way right the way down south now and go to the ocean and see what's happening at Stony Point. Can't quite see what that is. A lizard of some description. See if it appears again. Oh, there we go. Show yourself. And we do see these lizards from time to time. I'm trying to remember if it's a type of girdled lizard or is it a plated lizard. I don't think it's plated, just because you can see those sort of almost serrations on the scales. I believe it's one of the girdled lizards. I'm going to quickly see if I can check for you. Yeah, Cape girdled lizard or a spiny-tailed girdled lizard. Well, that's a bit of a mouthful to say. Marco, you're saying scat eater lizard with a question mark. I assume you're referring to this one as to whether it eats scat from other animals. So for those of you who are unsure, we sort of divide up the excretion of animals based on their diet. So scat refers to carnivores, feces to omnivores, and dung to herbivores. Quite what the specific diet is of these Cape girdled lizards, Mark, I'm not 100% sure, but on the assumption it's similar to other ones, it would be predominantly small vertebrates and insects, but they'll be very opportunistic. Whether or not they do feed on droppings of other animals, I am not sure. Certainly not beyond the realms of possibility. There's a lot of good stuff that passes through other organisms. And remember, a lot of insects are attracted to the dung or feces or scat of other animals, which may also be what attracts lizards to that area to take advantage of the insects which are there. I've seen insects sort of rummaging through dung piles before, looking for beetles and snatching flies that have been attracted to it. But whether they actually eat the dung itself, that I'm not sure, I'm afraid. Susan Douglas, you're commenting on the great camera work being done by our zoomies. Yeah, absolutely. Not easy to keep one of these things in frame if it decides to go wandering around. But we are very lucky to have the technology that we have now. We can zoom in and get some beautiful close-ups of these animals and watch them without their knowledge, without them knowing that we're watching them. And always think it's such a privilege and an honour to be able to view these animals doing what they would be doing whether we were there or not. We don't want to see contrived behaviour or behaviour that has been changed on account of our viewing them. I remember last time I was on, we had a question about whether technology has helped animals. And I think we went into a bit of a philosophical debate about, well, if animals probably don't benefit one way or the other from technology, because if we weren't here in the first place, they wouldn't require the assistance of technology. But what it does do is allow us some very interesting windows into the lives of these animals, certainly. Allows us to watch in a far less intrusive manner. Is there something in that hole? Very probably. Looking carefully, trying to see if there's any movement. Nothing obvious that I can see. Sort of place a penguin might like to hang out though, or another lizard, maybe a dussie in there. Oh, hang on, there is something. It is. Is that a penguin? It must be. See, this is why the zoomies do their job, because I wasn't even sure what that was. But I'm still not 100% sure what it was. I'm assuming penguin, based on its black and white coloration. I wonder if they've got a little nest in there. Perfect spot for them. Yeah, a little African penguin. Beautiful. Well, just while we wait to see if this penguin shows itself, it's a good opportunity to just remind you about Wild Earth travel. So if you are interested in an authentic personal safari experience that will connect you to the wonders of Africa, you get to explore the landscapes and wildlife that you've seen through our cameras and our shows, and it gives you the opportunity to get closer than ever to some of your favourite characters, meet some of the crew, and see what goes on behind the scenes. So if you are interested in that, follow us at Wild Earth Travel Official, and you can visit our website for exclusive safari experiences, and maybe you are able to join us on one of those trips. That would be an amazing opportunity, I'm sure. Well, I know for a fact. Speaking of which, we do still have 2 spots available for our Wild Earth Legacy Tour, which is running between the 21st and the 28th of August this year. It's a 7-night trip, and you'll get to stay at Chitwa Chitwa, which I'm sure many of you will know well from our morning and afternoon safaris from the sands. You get to stay at Jackie's Sabi House, both luxury lodges, twice daily game drives, lots of fireside storytelling and other experiences, and most importantly, be hosted by Taylor, Steve, Cedric, and I myself will also be there for a night, and I will hopefully be doing some stargazing as part of that as well. So a great opportunity. We only have 2 spots left, so do get in contact with us if you would like to join 21st, 28th of August. Maybe we can also see a dussie. We don't have many in the Sabi Sands area, but wherever there is a big rocky outcrop, a copy as we call it, it's always worth stopping and checking and looking for some of these little hyraxes, particularly in the morning. They love a bit of morning sunshine. and scratch. They do spend a lot of time just lolling around in the sun, but they're far more agile than they look. I know they look quite sort of rounded in appearance, but incredibly dexterous and agile across these rocky surfaces, thanks to special adaptations on their feet, almost like suction cups, and a sweaty secretion that just helps give them a little bit of grip onto the rock. And surprisingly agile. They are vegetarian. You see them climbing trees sometimes, but very, very cute. They sort of remind me of something of a cross between a beaver and a guinea pig. But known for not having very good thermoregulation abilities, which is why they do like to spend a lot of time lolling about in the sun, and they generally sleep all together, all sort of cuddled up, just conserving body heat, a little bit like penguins do as well. But nice to know that we've got a little African penguin hanging out. I'm hoping that's a nest. Maybe we'll see some activity there over the coming weeks. Yeah, always nice to check in and get some ocean views down here at Stony Point. I think we're going to go to Naledi now, back up to the sands where we have some more elephants. We do, and a little one as well hiding behind this one at the foreground. Very young by the look of it. Difficult to see at the moment, but I wouldn't say more than a few months old, that young elephant. Hopefully we get a clearer view shortly. Oh, and another little one. Sweet. Yeah, I have to stand up on his back legs to reach in there. But this big cow who's just arrived on the left came in with quite a lot of purpose. I wonder if that's her calf, the one in the foreground, and the one at the back is this other one's. Perhaps she realised that the little one had got a bit far away and just came in to keep an eye. No, Penelope Kane, I also haven't been at Naledi's waterhole for a while, or seen this camera for a while. So as you say, nice to see the well drinkers. So same principle there as Oldonio. This little well will have a pipe in it, which is feeding the water, and the overflow goes down to stopping up the dam. And the elephants will always prefer that cleaner water. But unfortunately, it seems we've had some camera issues there, so we have come up to Lentoria in Kenya. It looked like maybe a little parasitic wasp that was possibly collecting some mud. Lots of dragonflies and butterflies. taking advantage of the minerals in the soil there, a bit of moisture. I'd love to be able to identify some of these butterflies for you. We'll see if I recognise any, but my knowledge of Kenyan butterflies is not great. I'm sure there will be some which are found both in southern and eastern Africa. But remember, butterflies are or can be very, very specific. There are various species that are only found in one very small geographic location, talking maybe only a few square kilometers across. And there are many species that are critically endangered and probably have become extinct because they are so sensitive or so specific in their habitat requirements. And if things change, there just isn't the diversity to allow them to spread to a different area. Oh, is that our ground squirrel that we often see here? Yes, looks like it. I love these things. They're so cute. What have you found? A little nut? Hear a mourning dove in the background. Sorry, I don't know what that first noise was. Wondering what he's feeding on. I'm assuming that tree is dropping seeds in little cases. You can see him nibbling on something and then spitting out the bits that he doesn't want. Oh, there's a second one as well at the back. Penelope, yes, lovely to hear all of the birds in the background as well. It's a lovely ambiance, but say particularly on Lentoria, I find the bird life here very, very interesting. Often get birds come down and have a drink. Pair of laughing doves. Oh, look at the way they're drinking. Seem very unusual and restricted just to the doves and pigeons, the way that they put their beak in the water and then siphon it up like a hose. They can close their beak sufficiently and actually sort of suck it up using their tongue as a pumping mechanism, whereas all the other birds that you see, they will scoop water up in their lower mandible and then put their head back and actually sort of have to swallow the water with the help of gravity. Pigeons and doves, the only birds, to my knowledge, in the animal kingdom that can actually suck up water with their beak. Very specialized things, doves and pigeons. We tend to sort of dismiss them as being very, very common. But as I always say, if things are common, they're common for a good reason. They're exceptionally good at what they do, otherwise there wouldn't be so many of them. That ability to take advantage of siphoning water, their ability to produce crop milk, that sort of cheesy, milky substance that is fed to youngsters, very, very rich in proteins and fatty acids and generally good things for the young ones. And there are some beautiful examples, even pigeons, sort of that you get in the northern hemisphere. They're dismissed very, very quickly. But if you actually stop and take a good look at them and forget that they're a common thing, some of the markings on them are truly spectacular. Untidy nests in that occasion there. They look like white-browed sparrow weaver nests. Not the classic sort of ball, tiny ball shape that we associate with things like, certainly in this area, village weavers and lesser mast and southern mast weavers. Much more of a sort of a messy colonial group of these sparrow weaver nests. And I'm sure we have seen those drinking here in the past. Yes, we can see some little squirrel pups. I don't think we've seen any youngsters here yet, but they should be a few months old now. The generally breeding season in Kenya should be between sort of October to December. So what are we in now? March, be a couple of months old. If there are any in the area, maybe they will follow the adults and have a little foray. That would be amazing to see, but they mature quickly. Normally by 6 months they become relatively independent and move off to new territories and new areas. Okay, always nice to check in at Lentoria. I find you never quite know what you're going to find there, but let's head back over to Oldonyo. We'll stay in Kenya, and I think we've got some more Ellies. Interesting to see what happens here. I've just been informed that these two were having a mild disagreement a couple of minutes ago, so we'll see if they have settled their differences or whether there is still more to come. Probably a fight over who gets access to the clean water. Oh. I get the impression that whatever it was has been settled. The one on the right certainly seems to be the larger of the two, I think. Possibly showing off a little bit his dominance. Picasso, you're asking, do elephants have a problem with cholesterol? Um, Picasso, that's a very good question. I have no idea whatsoever, but such is the world we live in. I will see if I can find out um, any issues. I wouldn't have thought so. I don't think their diet is particularly high in cholesterol, but you never know. Let me have a quick look and I will report back. But so do keep these questions coming in. I remember somebody asked a question a while back about whether elephants are susceptible to cancer, and from some digging around, I discovered that whilst it does happen in very occasionally, they generally don't, and it's something to do with specific genomes and things that they have, or genetic um, genetic things. I can't think of the right word, but genetic strains. No, genomes will do if that is the correct term. Any biologist watching, apologies if that's incorrect. But anyway, that we have something like one pair or two pairs of this specific thing, whereas elephants have like 20 or 30 pairs, and that is the thing that fights against cancer, which is caused by the mutation of cells when they replicate. Very large animals like elephants and whales, you would think would be more susceptible to it, but seem not to struggle, but potentially because of the presence of this particular thing, which is able to eradicate those cells before they become a problem. But let me see what I can find about elephants and cholesterol for you, Picasso. I will let you know. Right, well, Picasso, as thought, a very quick and brief check uh, does seem to substantiate what I was thinking, that they don't really have cholesterol-related issues because their diet is generally high in fiber and low in saturated fats, which generally gives them a much healthier body chemistry. However, never say never, and I'm sure there are cases where genetics dictate that they may be more susceptible or have less of ability to deal with those sorts of things. But as a generalized rule, I don't think it is a major factor in their lives. And yeah, as I thought, it seems that, again, just doing a little bit more digging, there it can be an issue in some animals, but generally just in those domesticated ones where their diet is not perhaps as natural as it could be. Obviously, there are underlying health conditions that could be a factor, and it certainly seems that some breeds of dogs and things might be more susceptible to it. But it has been recorded in dogs, cats, horses, farm animals, even some primates, but generally tends to be related to the diet that they are either fed or have privy to, depending on the area. So I suppose for some animals, say primates, for example, if they're driven out of their traditional range, and primates and things that have become far more active at living amongst humans and eating human food and raiding kitchens and bins and things, then there is a likelihood or a higher likelihood that they would develop those sorts of problems based on dietary changes. Lenny, you're asking what's my favourite location to go stargazing. Um, Lenny, to be honest, it's difficult to say because all I really require is dark, clear skies. Anywhere that offers those is more than sufficient. Currently, I'd say it's probably the little star deck that I now have where I live. Got some astroturf down, got a flat roof, and I go up there quite regularly with my equipment, or sometimes just lie out there and look up. Um, but I have to say, I do really enjoy doing my stargazing evenings within the boundaries of the greater Kruger area. Not necessarily due to the specific clarity of the sky, but I just think it's a far more of a connective experience when you can hear wildlife in the background, the distant roar of a lion or the sort of laughing of the hippo or a whoop of a hyena. I just think that adds so much to the experience. But in terms of the best skies that I have ever witnessed firsthand, would be out in the Namib Narkluft Reserve in Namibia, around the Sossusvlei area. I've been fortunate enough to go out there a couple of times. It is a recognized international dark sky reserve from the Dark Sky International, the non-profit organization that proclaims these areas as safe and requires the buy-in from local communities and governments to ensure that light pollution is kept at a strict minimum for the benefit of those dark skies. But if you really want to experience the best skies, yeah, anywhere that is preferably sort of cold and very dry in terms of humidity, because humidity leads to warmth in the atmosphere, and humidity ultimately is droplets of water um, in the atmosphere. And remember, the starlight has to pass through the atmosphere. That causes refractions, it causes distortions. That's why stars twinkle more when they're low to the horizon, because they're passing through more atmosphere. And it's why we spend an awful lot of money, time, and effort on launching these space observatories like Hubble and James Webb and Gaia and Kepler and other ones that have gone up there, so they can examine and explore the cosmos without having to worry about atmospheric distortions and refraction and chromatic aberration and all the other problems that that can lead to. Ooh, that's a reaction. Who's approaching? Giraffe or another elephant coming in? Look at their body language. Head held high, ears spread wide. Something's disturbed this bull. I did an evening last week on an airstrip in the Klasiri Game Reserve. That was very, very special. We actually had an African wildcat that wandered past. There were also lion tracks on the airstrip, and we could see where the lions had been there the previous evening, even see where they had been lying down on the ground. So we kept a close eye out. Obviously, safety important, but I think that just adds such an amazing dimension, particularly when you're telling people the beautiful cultural star lore from a variety of African tribal history of seeing certain animals in the sky and explanations from these ancient cultures as to why certain things are up there. So many of them are nature related because that's the way they spent their life. So it just adds a really exceptional dimension. I don't know what bothered this guy. He got very upset or agitated about something. Something said from the peanut gallery of giraffes, perhaps, that upset him. But I'm hoping for some clear skies this evening. I've got a bit of a project ongoing of a massive area of sky where I'm attempting to do a 12 panel mosaic of an area of sky associated with the constellation of Vela, the sail, which is part of the great ship, the Argo Navis from Jason and the Argonaut story in Greek mythology, which is beautiful and prominent in the night sky. The Milky Way runs through it. And there's a great area that's sort of colloquially known as the Spaghetti Nebula, but it's actually a supernova remnant. So, where a giant star many years ago exploded, and all those shock waves are interacting with the surrounding gas, giving it this sort of rather tendrillous appearance. And we should pick up lots of beautiful colours and structure there, but it's very faint, so it requires lots and lots of data. And it's a quite a large area of sky. So, it's going to require multiple clear evenings to gather that all together, and then an awful lot of time and effort to stack all the individual pictures and merge them together in a mosaic and then tease out those finer details. But I really enjoy that. It's such a humbling experience to be able to photograph things so faint and so far away and so enormous in terms of their impact on the cosmos. Very, very special to be able to be a part of that. And lovely to see the Southern Cross climbing higher into the sky now as well, which traditionally associated with giraffe in Xhosa and Zulu tradition, known as Ditwa, which means giraffe, the Southern Cross and the two pointer stars underneath. You can see that sort of diamond-shaped head of the giraffe. That was what was seen in the constellation of the Southern Cross, the head of a giraffe and the two pointer stars representing its long neck, watching over the land, watching over the moon to make sure that it arrived on time and illuminated the sky for the benefit of the herbivores. Hoping this giraffe is going to also bend down and have a drink. I don't know if that youngster's still hanging around. Still not sure what upset this elephant. Doesn't seem to be too perturbed in sharing his waterhole with the giraffe. We'll see if more giraffes start coming in, whether the elephant decides that he wants a bit more personal space. He does look a little bit jumpy, looking around. Yeah, here we go. Is it another elephant? I'm not sure if he's chasing something off that we just can't see, but you can see the body language. He's not happy with somebody. You'd have thought if he had a problem with sharing his water, he would have chased off this giraffe that made a beeline to something over on the right. They do, of course, chase predators off, but you would think if there was a predator here, we would see a reaction from the giraffe as well. So maybe there's a young bull who was considering coming in. I'm not sure. See if he has a problem with this giraffe now he's coming back. Watching him carefully. Just a bit highly strung today, I think, this Ellie. Can you see the cogs ticking in this elephant? Is he okay with the giraffe? I think he is, but he's just watching him carefully. Carol, it sounds like our rhinos down at Founders might have roused from their slumber, and let's hope they go down for a mud bath. Let's go have a look at Founders. Oh, that's a far better place to sleep. Where he's blocking his nostrils. Make sure one nostril is exposed. If they put one nostril in the mud or the ground like that, would they have the ability to decide which nostril from which to inhale from? Otherwise, that would be very uncomfortable. Never considered that before, because you often see rhinos plonk down with half their face covered in mud. Time for a mud pack. Oh, beautiful. The other side. Yeah. Full coverage attained, I think. But say, great to keep the biting insects at bay, great for conditioning the skin and protecting the skin from the sunlight. Wildlife lady out, wonderful. Having a mud spa day. Definitely looks as if it's enjoying itself. Can't quite decide where the best spot is. It's interesting to see parts of the rhino we don't normally get to see so well. I got a brief glimpse of its belly button earlier when he was rolling over, which is not something you see every day. Mud, glorious mud, Gen Mac, indeed. Very much enjoying his time there. Warthogs and rhinos, I don't think there's anything else that really relishes in some nice fresh mud as much as they do. They always look so, so happy. Ellie, you're saying the rhino has had an excellent idea. Yeah, very much taking advantage of what is in front of him. That's funny, yes, a sound, a sigh of contentment, absolutely. It's a happy rhino. Probably see him have a bit of a scratch at some point, using that mud like an exfoliant. Just get rid of any ectoparasites, reach the parts that otherwise can't be reached. You often see them rubbing the base of their horn as well. Remember, you get those little horn moths that are forever trying to lay eggs in the base of the horn because the larvae will feed on the keratin. They normally keep them at bay whilst they are moving around by scratching and rubbing and probably covering them in mud to offer some form of protection. But if you've ever seen horns and things of a deceased antelope after a lion kill or even from natural causes, you often see those sort of protrusions from buffalo horns, from wildebeest horns. Those are the deposits of those larvae. They feed on the keratin, and when they defecate or produce their frass, which is sort of insect droppings, that mixed with silk, they make these little tubes, and it's within that tube that they will then pupate and come out as adult flies or moths, sorry. Yeah, have a bit of a scratch at the base of that horn on that rock. Almost looks like a bronze statue there, doesn't he? With all that mud reflecting the sunlight. Very beautiful. It shows you the power of a rhino. I'm sure we would probably struggle to move that rock. He just gives it a little nudge with his head. some rhino yoga. It must be so frustrating for these animals not to have fingers and thumbs with which to scratch those parts that you can't reach. A hoof can only do so much. Sometimes you have to use what is available to you in the natural environment. To be honest, we've all backed up against something and had a good scratch of that annoying patch right in the middle of the back, where it doesn't matter if you go over the shoulder or around and sort of up from the base of the back, you just can't quite reach it. That's when pens or a jutting out little rock or a branch comes in very handy. We've used the rock, and we're going to use that rather appropriately placed sort of arc in the tree to reach some other areas. And you'll always find some form of rubbing post in an area where rhinos frequent close to the water. And sometimes these rocks or tree stumps have been polished so smooth. You think how many years these animals have been using those posts, that they've actually sort of worn them away and created these beautiful patterns within them. Always a good idea, say on a walk, it's always nice to find one of those and go and investigate more closely. And it's not unusual to find hair encrusted in muds there, or the remnants of ticks that have been squashed and rubbed off with that sort of exfoliant action. A window into these animals' lives. Yeah, particularly the horn-boring moths, and you also get flies that are attracted to the organic material that builds up on horns, and they come and fly around there and they try and lay their eggs there, and the larvae will feed on the remnants. So a lot of maintenance done on that horn. I think that was very special to see our rhino frolicking in the mud like that. Let's have a quick pop up to Tau and see what's happening. We can always come back if this rhino or the other one decides to also have a bit of a dip in the mud. Ah, beautiful. Three ostriches, two males on the outsides and a female moving through the middle. You can see that from the coloration. Male's dark, female's much lighter and brownish in color. And another male as well, wow. It's unusual to see. They're polygynous birds, so one male will mate with multiple females. So normally you'd sort of find it the other way around, a male with a group of females. Interesting to see three males with just one female there. Of the three males, it does look like the one at the back is potentially the most likely to be doing anything to do with mating. It just seems hard from this distance that he's got a little bit more pink around the beak. And during breeding season or an interested male will develop this sort of pinkish colour. The beak will become much more obvious. The front of the legs also go pink in response to changes of hormones in the body. May also explain why he is the one closest to the female, although now they're coming a little bit closer, I don't see quite such an obvious pink colour as I thought I did. Spas, I see you're also agreeing with me that unusual to see three males and one female, not what I would expect, certainly. As you said, would we be seeing breeding displays? But yes, they sort of run around and they flap their wings around to show off to the females. But I haven't seen any interaction between those males. Maybe this is just a coincidental thing that they're all in the same place, because I haven't seen any obvious competition. I'm looking at the front of that male's shins, I suppose. You can see there's a little tinge of pink there, but I would expect to see a much more reddish colour. If they were in sort of full breeding plumage, I would assume we're coming to the end of the breeding season now for these ostriches. I don't see any chicks in tow, so whether chicks didn't make it or whether these are youngsters perhaps that haven't quite figured out the mating game, I'm not quite sure. But yes, unusual to see three males and one female. Ross, whether they're feeding on those yellow flowers, I don't know. Possibly. Ostriches will eat anything. They eat rubbish, they eat rocks, they eat various sort of grasses and shrubs and forbs and things. They've got quite a strong digestive system, but very well known for eating rocks, as do many birds. Because of the type of digestion, the food obviously goes down the esophagus and then into the other stomachs, the proventriculus, and then ultimately on into the gizzard, which is the more muscular stomach with those sort of bridges of muscular muscle lining that sort of grind up the food a little bit more efficiently. Remember that birds don't have teeth, so if they are eating fibrous material, a lot of that grinding action helps in the stomach, and it's quite normal for birds to swallow rocks, and then those rocks stay in the gizzard and just help with grinding up that food. So all these ostriches have got a little bit of pink. You can see some of the pink on the forelegs of both of these males. Unusual, I don't have an explanation, I'm afraid. But certainly there seems to be no competition between them. Ivan, you're asking Are there any constellations that feature giraffe? Well, yeah, I just mentioned there in Corsa and Zulu, the Southern Cross and the associated pointers, Alpha and Beta Centauri, are often associated with the giraffe. In some versions or in some cultures, it's seen as one thing, with the long neck of the giraffe passing through the pointers and the diamond shape of the Southern Cross representing the head of the giraffe. In other cultures, the four bright stars of the Southern Cross are seen as four male giraffe, and the two pointers as two female giraffe following by, or the opposite way around. I don't know of any other giraffe specifically, although there is a constellation in the northern hemisphere, ironically, called Camelopardus, which is the giraffe. So there is a constellation which is a giraffe, but unusually we can't actually see it here from the southern hemisphere. It was named a lot later. It's not an old constellation. It wasn't one of the original Greek ones. It was added, I think, somewhere between the 16 and the 1700s. Probably from a traveller who came down, saw giraffe, then returned to the northern hemisphere, and then incorporated Camelopardus. I don't think it's one of the original Greek constellations. I'll probably check just to make sure. There are some references to ostriches up there as well, to the Bushmen. They saw the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades star cluster, which is still just visible for us in the west after sunset. They saw that as a group of ostrich eggs. And in Aboriginal and potentially in Bushman culture, they actually used the dark dust lanes of the Milky Way and actually created shapes of animals out of the darker patches. Very well known in Aboriginal style lore of that being an emu, and suggestions that the Bushmen also saw an ostrich. And the coal sack, which is the really dark area very close to the Southern Cross, represents the head of that giant flightless bird, and then the dark dust lanes that run through those pointer stars is the long neck, and then the rest of the body stretches out through the core of the Milky Way and beyond, and it takes up, when it's directly overhead, so 2/3 of the sky, this enormous sort of silhouetted avian creature. What looks to be a black-headed heron. There's also a constellation called Grus, the heron, as well, here in the southern hemisphere. Okay, I've just double-checked. So Camelopardus, yes, as I thought, it was introduced by a Dutch astronomer, Petrus Plancius, in 1592. So it's one of the more recent constellations that were added to the now recognised 88. There's also the Dutch who added Grus the crane. Sorry, Grus is the crane, not the heron. My apologies. Grus is the crane. Marco Casas just saying it must be funny watching a rock going down that long, narrow neck. Yeah, it's amazing what they can swallow. It really is. And sometimes if they do swallow something big, you can actually follow its path. It's a bit like when we watch giraffe swallow down those boluses of food, or more obviously when they regurgitate the food for rumination processes. You see that ripple come up the throat. But they must have a very distendable esophagus, because they do eat some fairly large things, ostriches, and things that you would not necessarily expect them to eat. I did read something the other day about flightless birds, as to why so few birds are indeed flightless, or why they have lost the ability to fly. it's generally considered a response to not having so much in terms of predators to worry about. Ostriches being big enough to run fast and escape from predators, they've lost those barbules and things that keep the feathers strong and interlinked with one another that's required for flight. But yeah, I read something recently that suggested that if it wasn't for humans, there might be as many as sort of 4 times as many flightless birds, or they used to be, and then they have become extinct over the years. Those ones that weren't able to evolve, and a lot of which has to do with the presence of humans and other animals which have invaded those areas, predators from which those flightless birds were unable to escape from. So it was an interesting idea of the evolution of bird feathers as a response to potential predatory pressure, and changes brought about by the introduction of people and rats and other things that potentially might affect the birds. Lady Macbeth, you're also saying there's some interesting theories regarding flightless birds and it being an evolutionary choice which is spreading. Well, I'd say generally evolution happens in response to changing of something, be it climate, be it stimuli. I watched a little thing online the other day about how the C4 grasses, so the more fibrous grasses that are more prominent in these areas where it's hotter and drier, compared to the C3 grasses and vegetation that are found in the northern hemisphere, and how generally it's been as a response to fire and changes in climatic conditions. And this particular study that I was looking at was referring to some of the grasslands in, I think it was somewhere in Argentina, and they went back and looked at all the history that is contained within the geology of the area to see what may have caused this influx of a different type of grass. It's a different strategy of photosynthesis. You get C3, C4, and then CAM photosynthesis, the latter being found only in very arid areas for things like desert plants like cacti and the like. And they actually saw that the increase of these C4 grasses in Argentina was as a direct result of the Pacific plate pushing into the continent, pushing the Andes mountains higher, which then created a sort of a rain shadow, as they called it, on the other side, and that area suddenly became drier and warmer and got less rainfall, causing the C3 plants to struggle and allowed for the C4 plants that can deal better with those situations to flourish in those areas. So as a rule, evolution is caused by a change in something and those animals to adapt. So it does make sense that birds, because if you look at a lot of prehistoric sort of dinosaur aged birds, a lot of them weren't flightless, probably on account of their size and the energy required to do so. But as things changed and as pressure from predators evolved, then so did this ability to fly in order to escape and to populate new, potentially safer areas. But it's all hearsay. We have to sort of make assumptions based on logic and information that we can find trapped in rocks and core samples and all sorts. I also saw something the other day that we found plenty of bacterial life and things living as deep as 4.5 kilometers below the surface of the Earth, taken from core samples and mining samples and things, and that there is a lot more stuff down there than we at first thought, which has given a little bit more impetus to keep searching areas like Mars, which we know were wet and could potentially have harbored life many millions of years ago, and maybe that life is still there but living deep, deep under the soil, where the conditions are more suitable. But it's quite hard to counteract that evolution. There was also a study I read recently where um, scientists had tried to mess around with the genetics or certain genetic code of chickens to try and cause their feathers to grow more like those classic terrestrial dinosaur birds that have far more sort of spiky feathers, and less actual feathery covering. Sort of that whole idea of the evolution from scales into feathers, and they were able to do so, but it didn't take long, only a couple of months, for those feathers to revert back and become more closer to normal feathers rather than what had originally grown, almost as if the chicken had said, well, we understand you've messed with my genetics. Here is what you look for, but this is what chickens look like now, and we will revert to this as well. It's quite hard to undo evolution. Okay, it sounds like our rhino's doing something again down at Founders. Let's head back down to the Eastern Cape, and have a look and see what they're up to. Oh, I wonder if this was the other slumbering rhino, also going to come follow suit. I have to just mention, Wildlife Lady, I enjoyed your comment saying just as well ostriches don't fly, otherwise you'd have to have an umbrella up just in case. Yeah, absolutely. You'd have to watch the skies very, very carefully. And Moonbeam Smith, imagine the size of wings an ostrich would need. Yeah, absolutely. We would be talking many meters to support that great bulk. And Marco Casas, you like the birds that are sort of in between flight and Land Rovers, as you called them, like secretary ground hornbills, which, yeah, who knows, maybe are on the road, evolutionary road to becoming flights. You never know. But I agree, the secretary bird is one of my absolute favourites. Saw some at Babula not that long ago. Was lucky enough to see one in Kruger a few weeks ago, and we had one here on the cameras a couple of weeks back as well. Definitely one of my faves. Mo, you're asking which part of Africa has cory bustards? I don't know their entire range, but certainly we have cory bustards here in South Africa. Uh, I've seen them in the Kruger a few times, so they are here. It's not something you see all of the time, but we do see cory bustards from time to time. Certainly, quite how far their distribution range spreads, I will have to double check. We're almost out of time, but let me just see if I can find out for you, because that's a good question. Okay, we're looking at the distribution map. Yes, just really restricted to the sort of Lowveld and Kruger area, but prevalent up in Bots, in Zim, in Mozambique, certainly sort of around the Karoo region and that central western part of South Africa, and I'm sure they extend further north. My map's just showing me southern Africa at the moment. But always special to see a quarry busted, certainly. But we only have a couple of minutes left. Spuss, you're very welcome. I'm glad you've enjoyed the show. And yes, you've mentioned that the ratites, which are those that sort of group of birds, those big flightless birds, are some of the most ancient ones that we have on the planet. Absolutely. Julie Braby, you've enjoyed this beautiful sighting of rhinos having a spa. Absolutely. Catherine, you've said you've never seen such hairy ears on a rhino. I haven't noticed actually, but now you mentioned it. Yes, is that frayed ears? Is that hairy ears? I'm gonna have to get in there and give him a bit of a trim. Yes, now you mention it, you do. He does have a rather sort of frilly edge to his ears. I don't know why that would be. But it is almost that time. So, everybody, thank you so much for joining me and for your questions and comments. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We've seen some lovely things today. The baby giraffe and old Donyo, a slightly, I wouldn't say aggressive elephant, but a highly strung elephant up there. We've had rhinos mud wallowing. Lovely to see ostriches, elephants having drinks, giraffes drinking. It's been a lovely, lovely afternoon. Don't forget to catch up with us later today for the sunset safari, and I will be back tomorrow from 12:30 for another session of Live at the Waterhole. But I hope that whatever your plans are for this lovely Saturday come into fruition and you have a wonderful day. And I will look forward to catching up with you at the same time tomorrow.